Hi there, I'm Dave Aaron, and welcome to your Marketing 626 summer class. Right now I'm on Harrison Avenue outside of Val's Halla record store with Val. She's our client, and part of our project this summer will be to apply what we learn about marketing to Val's Halla and do whatever we can to help ensure her marketing success.
South that had barbecues and fish boils, and we had live music on the stage all day for 7 to 8 hours. You know, every store did whatever it could do to market the idea that people should come to their store to celebrate Record Store Day.
Very cool.
And that's all it is. It's a marketing device.
Right.
That somebody else came up with.
Yeah, who started that, you know?
Whoever the recordstoreday.com people are.
Okay.
And I don't know who they all are, but it was a couple of people who, and I don't know if they were in retail, I don't know if they were in wholesale, I don't know if they were in manufacturing, I don't know what their background was, but they came up with the idea that there was a good reason for all the people who love music to celebrate the independent record store. Chain stores cannot apply. They cannot be part of it. Only stores that are independent, they could be small independent chains. I mean, Reckless Records, it has, 3 stores or 4 stores. They can be a part of it.
Okay.
But
what's left? I mean, there's FYE in my shopping mall.
well, but they can't be part of it. They
That's a big
can't get
chain.
any of the merchandise.
Can I set this?
Yeah, you can just lay it right on top. Yeah, they can't get any of the merchandise. They can't be listed in the store-wide, in the listings that are online. They can't promote Record Store Day, and they can't get any of the merchandise.
They just can't, hands off.
Yeah,
They can't
it
touch
doesn't belong to them. It belongs
Right.
to independent record stores. And the entire focus is supposed to be just go to your independent record store to honor its existence. So that was awesome. And then we spend a lot of time talking to people and, promoting stuff. And we came out with our new T-shirts that day. Sold like 40 of our new T-shirts, all in just that one day.
That's good advertising too. That's good marketing.
And all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, that's what you do. But that's one day. Marketing is something that you do every single day you're open.
Yeah.
That's what you do. That's, Are we running? Oh, we are.
I had a feeling.
Okay.
So you just catch us in mid-stride.
But
When you say marketing, something you're doing every day, can you label it? Can you say, today, this is the kind of marketing I'm going to be doing?
Sure. Everything you see on these walls, everything you see on the ceilings, this is today's marketing effort.
Yeah.
Everything we do from the moment we open the door till the moment we close the door, and everything we do outside of the store is the same marketing. Every time I go to eat in a restaurant and someone says, "Aren't you Val? Don't you own Val's Halla?" I'm marketing the store. We have our own T-shirts. We have our own logo, obviously, that we've had for many, many, many years. But all of that, every single step, the reason we have this particular record with this particular name on it is part of the marketing. Which name are we going to put on there? Which artists are going to have their own name on it, and which ones are going to be in the letters?
Jazz AB versus...
Right. Which category are we going to put certain artists in? What's the best marketing decision that we make about where we file a particular artist? Why does it matter? Because in my store, the likelihood of who is going to be buying that particular artist in relation to other particular artists that are going to generate the potential of increased sales. In other words, if I want to sell Bob Dylan records, apart from the fact that he's known as, a legend, but he's a legend in a lot of different categories.
Right.
In my opinion, his bedrock legendaryism, if there is such a word, is in folk.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so that's where I have him. Now, why do I put him there? Because there is a much greater likelihood that someone who is looking for Bob Dylan will look in that same bin and see Donovan and see a little further Carole King and Simon and Garfunkel. I could put him in rock. However, what's the likelihood that what somebody's looking for, they're going to have to file through all the AC/DC and the Aerosmith and the Doors and all those other things, which of those two scenarios are likely to draw the closest association.
Right. You're helping your customer make connections that will just give them more
You're in
pleasure.
effect making the connections of what is likely to happen. All of that is guesswork because there is no perfect answer.
Right.
There are some things that would be downright dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, if you stuck them in classical, that would be dumb.
Okay.
But in most cases, what you're doing, every decision you make, every single day that you're open, what price are you going to put on the item? Where are you going to file the item? How are you going to tell people you have the item?
Right.
Are you going to display it? In the case of CDs, we often will display, not always, but the newer titles down here, as opposed to in the bin where it's harder to see them.
Okay.
And in large stores and department stores and places like that, you see end caps.
Right.
There are a million psychological descriptions and answers and theories about display use in retail and what it generates in terms of sales. Now, the big corporations will give you all those figures in numbers and percentages.
Yeah, but how do you measure it?
I don't care
Yeah.
because I don't care if percentage number A.
Well, like, is there a reason that these are here as opposed to, is that just the way the boxes ended up?
No, nothing is ever, just like a movie director
nothing to
directing
chance,
a movie.
right?
If you look at a movie scene, and I've experienced this in classes that I've taken with regard to movies, you look at a scene as a still, and you say, gee, isn't it interesting that they happened to make that shot just when there was that Coke machine there?
Oh, right.
Not
We'll learn about
ever.
product placement, don't worry.
That is product placement.
Right.
Product placement is marketing.
And everything here is choreographed.
Everything is choreographed. Sometimes a decision is made purely on the basis of numbers. I need X number of feet to fit all of the classical LPs. So pretty dumb if I take 2 boxes of classical and I stick the reggae in between and then I put another 2 boxes of classical. That doesn't make sense. So recently we wanted more space at the other end of the store at the end of the comedy section because we needed a little space to put our listening station. Well, what was in that space was blues. Perfectly logical move that Shane made was to take the blues, put it down at the end of jazz where we had a little space. It's a logical segue.
Right, from blues to jazz.
And it opened up a space where we could put the listening station. So the marketing aspect was a response to a need. Sometimes it's just plain response to logic. Sometimes it's a response to a holiday.
Right.
You know, I'm not going to take all my Christmas records and stick them in the middle of the punk rock section. I'm going to put them someplace, preferably with the cassettes, with the LPs, and with the CDs in one section, so that when customers come in October or November and say, well, do you have any Christmas music? We could say it's there.
Right.
We will then go into the classical section and very likely pull out a recording of Handel's Messiah. Move it to the Christmas section,
which works very
because
nicely
it's one of the most important pieces of Christmas music, even though it was written for Easter rather than Christmas, but that's okay.
Details.
The reality is that all of those decisions are marketing. Then that's marketing in the concept of in-store, what you do to tell the customer in the least amount of time and the most visually impacting what it is you have. That, however, if you just did that, that's the same as the kind of marketing that what I like to call a refrigerator store, a Best Buy, will do, because there's no personal service.
It's just the attributes, right?
It's
this is the list of ingredients.
This is where we stick it, because if you're looking for refrigerators, it's pretty dumb if I stick an air conditioner in the middle of the refrigerators. So
they both have to do with cooling.
They do have both to do with cooling.
Okay.
That's not much of a marketing play. If somebody's in a market for a refrigerator, they might be in a market for a stove, but chances are they're not in a market for an air conditioner at that moment.
So it comes back to the connections that you're.
But you make the connections visually. That means the display, how you decorate, product placement. Those are all interior marketing. They are, however, only the first step. With the chain stores, they are dependent on that step, first and foremost. That's why they do such calculated numbers involving in marketing.
Big planograms.
Well, they don't have a choice. They don't have service. They have a clerk up front at a counter.
To ring you up.
So it is to ring you up.
Yeah.
It is your job to navigate and maybe to find one service person someplace in that Walmart that can help you find the drugstore department or the aspirin or the spark plugs.
Well, what percentage, could you put a number on it, of the customers that come in, know what they're looking for, go right for it, versus need to be directed, need to have those connections made for them?
Many of those things are divided according to, right now, in this moment in time, the browsing aspect of retail in the music industry has shot up by vast percentage because of the influx and the gargantuan explosion of vinyl. Okay, that's changed everything, because now a much greater percentage of people want to browse. When it comes to used product, it's more about browsing.
Right.
When it comes to new product, it's more about, I heard there's a new Daft Punk. Can I buy it? Right. I heard there's a new Audra McDonald coming out on Tuesday. Will you have it? Can I order it? Okay. Those are, that's how that's divided. So the used is much more about browsing. The new is more about knowing. When it comes to holiday shopping, it's more about asking for something specific.
Very specific, right.
I would say that we are probably, I don't know guessing these, but I would guess that we are probably 70-30 browsing over, I know exactly what I want. Now phone calls may be more about, I'm looking for such and such a song. I'm looking for, now even that changes dramatically from a store to store. In a store like mine, who is this and what is that song? And I heard this 47 years ago when I was in grammar school, and now nobody can find it for me but you. Now that's a reputation. that is also the result of marketing that way. We have always marketed ourselves because it is a penchant of mine to be able to find what other people cannot find. That means knowing the tools, knowing how to use the tools.
And what tools are you referring to now?
They could be the internet. They could be the old phonologue, which existed long before there was an internet. It was a big yellow book that was about 4.5 to 5 feet wide of interchangeable pages. It was long before Google, but it was the All Music or the internet iTunes version in paper and ink of what now we do on the internet.
Right.
But the internet is a tool. The internet doesn't know who the guy was on the cover that was carrying a bamboo fishing rod, that was singing songs about potatoes. You know, that's what we get.
Right. The most obscure
The most
music-related and
obscure
other questions. Right?
related, the most obscure anything related. Food, animals, trees, you know, it doesn't matter. Toys. But what is a part of me is a blinding, excruciating degree of curiosity, which means if somebody asks me something and I don't know, it will kill me for the rest of that day, if not for the rest of that month, if I can't find an answer. It is not, in my particular opinion, whether or not the person buys anything. I have to admit that in these years, with the internet being what it is, and with the amount of downloading and buying online that it has become less fun to answer those obscure questions when you know just from the tone that this isn't somebody asking because they want to buy it from you. It's somebody asking because they can't find the answer online so that they can download it or buy it online.
Okay.
So what they're going to use is my 50 years of the ability to ferret out answers so that they can download it for less.
It's just a version of showrooming, right? Where we come in, we look
That's
around,
exactly
look at the
what it
merchandise, get the answers, and
It is exactly what it is.
go to a different channel to make the
And
purchase.
that's right. And it's something that is not being discouraged by the world in general, but it's offensive to anyone who still operates with the kind of deep searching. You know, if I worked for Best Buy, it wouldn't bother me at all.
If someone just came in to ask questions,
to
then
look
left.
around and see how much something cost and then went and downloaded it or ordered it from Amazon. But that isn't personal.
Well,
It is to me.
It is. Why do you think it's personal to you, but not to
Well,
Best Buy
because
or
this store
Borders
represents,
or something?
well, because this store represents everything that I am. It's my own years that you're searching.
Yeah.
You know, no problem if you're just saying, if I'm sitting there and you're in the store and you're just saying, I'm really curious about who it was that was doing that song, we could spend 45 minutes on it. And if it's just the curiosity, the fun of finding an answer, I'm happy to waste that time.
Yeah, just being curious, just
Just
discovery,
to
right?
find the answer.
Yeah.
Just to find the answer. I'm working on one of those now. There was a guy from Texas who was here. I don't know how he got my name. He was in town in the city for a convention or a trade show. And there was a song that he knew from the 1960s. He does not remember where he got it from. He knows it was on an album. He brought an MP3 of it. We loaded it up on my computer. I'm still searching for it. I haven't found the answer. It's going to absolutely kill me. I didn't matter to me whether he bought it here or anywhere. Just the opportunity to find the answer.
Right.
But when it's a calculated phone call,
Right.
that is designed because the person that you already asked at Best Buy couldn't find the answer. I mean, we actually had a phone call one time when someone was in Borders.
Oh, when they called you.
They called here to get our advice on which album by a certain artist they should buy.
While they're there.
While they're there. Which one they should buy at Borders.
Yeah. Couple related questions. How do you decide what to put on the label, the price tag, and how important is the price to your customers?
Well, and that's been a change. There have been many, many, many changes in the music industry in terms of pricing, and it's extremely important. Back in the early days of recorded music, let's say the early days of, let's start with LPs, and even 45s, but primarily LPs, there was a list price. And it held true. List price was about $3.98 or $4.98 in the 50s for an LP. In the middle 60s, when rock and roll really, from about 62 or 63 on, when rock and roll became part of it and the music industry exploded. Prior to the 1960s, everybody sold their records at, quote, list price, the price that the manufacturer put on. And the discount was, like it was in books and in any other, all kinds of other products, it was a percentage of that you paid depending on how you bought and who you bought from. In the 60s, the music industry exploded to absolutely astronomical degrees, and that was the beginning of rock and roll.
Okay.
So it started in the 50s, but nobody jumped on it yet. By the time we get to close to the British invasion, 62, 63, then the industry exploded. Everybody and their country cousin owned a record store. And that's when discounting came into play. And suddenly, there was no such thing anymore as a $3.98 record. Every store competing in its own individual market chose a price, and their margins became smaller and smaller and smaller. So the most competitive stores in any marketplace were selling those $3.98 albums for $2.99. Then when the $3.98 went to $4.98, or when there was both, when they were both mono and stereo, the mono was, let's say, at $4.98, stereo was at $5.98. We were selling stuff for $3.99 or $3.69. So in some cases, we were paying $3.60, selling it for 9 cents, which is not only stupid,
Not a lot of profit there.
not a lot of profit there, and was the main reason that almost every big record chain or any big department store that started to carry music, which started in the Midwest with chains like E.J. Corvette, which were the Best Buy of the time.
Right. Corvettes.
They sold records as basically loss leaders because they made their money on Corvette brand name pharmaceuticals, the Corvette name on appliances. That's where all their margins were. So records were expendable. So they were selling them for a penny more than they were paying for them.
Yeah, just to get you to come in and come into the store.
And that meant that as independent stores, you had to compete with that. Right. You couldn't compete with that exactly, but you had to try. So that happened, and that carried through into the CD world, where there were list prices on CDs, but those list prices meant very little because everybody picked a price where they thought that they could survive.
Okay.
Many cases, I mean, I ran a chain of 5 stores, and we just about went under because we were always competitive in price. But we also had a store in Madison, Wisconsin, where there were 6 or 8 record stores all on the same street right near the campus.
Wow.
And we were all selling records for almost nothing. So it didn't matter how many thousands of dollars you did in sales.
Yeah.
It's
You didn't keep any of it.
well, I mean, there's a certain thing, and margins of profit and markup are things that anyone who is going to go into any form of any business, those are critical, important aspects, so that everybody in the world who says, oh man, it'd be really cool to own a record store or own a bookstore or own a skateboard shop or own a you know, anything, it doesn't matter. You have to figure out how much does it cost you every day to open the door.
Okay, right.
If it costs you
store.
$500 a day to open the door, then, and you're making, you know, 10% on everything you sell, then in order to make $500 to pay to open, you have to sell $5,000 worth of merchandise.
Right.
It's that simple. You want to open the door, it costs you $500 between your rent and your salaries and your whatever it is. That $500 a day has to come out of $5,000 worth of sales.
Because you're only making the 10% margin.
Because you're only making
That's
10%.
the
So that's simple mathematics, and anybody who is even considering, and that's why there are things like, for instance, online sales, where individuals.
And you sell online,
We do.
right? You've got an online site.
We do. We make it a policy, and here again is a marketing ploy, in a sense. We make it a decision to put online things that are not up there already by the gazillions.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not interested in, we try to put them online at less than whatever they're online for,
Okay.
but that amount will be more, substantially more than what we will sell it for in the store.
Oh, okay.
Why do I do that? I do that because it is my philosophy that my customers who walk into my store, to shop in my store, because we are not an online store. We are a brick and mortar store that also sells online.
Right.
But the impact on a customer of my store is coming in here. It is an experience to come here, to shop here. It is not the same as going to a chain store, and it is not the same as buying online.
Right.
So when my customers come in here to shop, they're going to get it for less than if they stayed in their own living room, in their pajamas,
And ordered
and
off their
ordered it
laptop.
from me online. They order it from me online, and they're going to pay $15 for it. If they walk in the store, they'll pay $10.
A percentage of your online customers, I imagine, aren't local, though.
They're, almost all of our online customers are from outside this country,
Right.
even, and certainly outside the city.
Okay.
Certainly outside of our region. Once in a while, we'll get an online order for something, for somebody who's in the Midwest. And usually what we do then is when we ship them that item, we will put in a little coupon that says, you're close enough. Next time you come into
want
the
you to come in
store,
here.
you're going to get a discount.
And the couponing is.
And
that's
that
marketing
is
as well?
another marketing device. It says, when you come back, and just like we put coupons in new residents, our landlord owns more buildings in the Oak Park area than anybody else. And in every new resident they get a little packet of things.
Like a
for their
welcome
new
wagon
residents.
kind of
It's
idea.
exactly like the
Yeah.
welcome wagon, and they get a coupon from us that says, shop in here and get a discount. All of those have been used, and everybody recognizes those. What people don't recognize are the aspects of marketing that take place in everything that an owner of a small business or an operator of a small business does every single day. Everything that Shane or I do in our personal lives, in our social lives, is marketing for Val's Halla.
Right.
We're recognized everywhere. If I'm on the golf course and somebody recognizes me, we're going to be talking about why it is they haven't shopped in the store lately and what it is they're looking for a gift for somebody.
Do you spend a lot of time out on the links?
I'm there once a week.
Oh, yeah?
That's my extent. 9 holes a week. But all of that is marketing.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop. It's not the same as, and it's not that if someone worked at Best Buy and they're out at a party and somebody says, what do? You work at Best Buy.
Yeah, but it's a job.
But it's a job.
Yeah, it's not.
It is
passion.
not, you're not marketing Best Buy.
Yeah.
You're telling somebody what you do. I'm marketing this store every single time I'm at a restaurant someplace.
Have you ever tried an approach to marketing that you think didn't work? Or maybe looking back, you would have done it in a different way?
Oh, we've tried advertising, which is what most people associate and define as marketing.
Yes. Only part of it.
It's not only part of it, it's the least effective part of it.
Okay, so you think
It is considered, direct mail, for instance, if you get a quarter to half of 1% return,
right.
that's considered successful.
Right, and just to make sure they hear that right, a quarter to 0.5% return
Of a direct mail. You
of a
send
direct
out
mail
10,000.
is a success, right?
Yeah. You send out 10,000 pieces of direct mail. If you get 5 pieces
Right.
out of those 10,000, or 50 pieces out of those 10,000, that's a big success.
Yeah, but now I wonder
it doesn't work for us very well at all.
and I know that model from the time I spend in direct marketing, but isn't that that's like the U.S. mail version of direct marketing versus online where you can target more precisely?
Absolutely. But for some products, that U.S. mail version is very successful. If you own a pizza place, paper coupons
Very
work
local.
all the time.
Right. So
They work all the time. You get 2 hot dogs for the price of 1, works all the time. We have used Groupon. We've done 3 Groupon campaigns.
how's that gone?
They've been successful for us, not because we made a lot of money, but because we can do the real marketing once they're in the store.
Right.
That's when we have them, when they come in the store, because what they're going to experience, in many cases, depending on how old the person is, will not have been something they have experienced ever in their lives.
Well, can you talk more about that, depending on how...
Well,
a lot of people don't know what a record store is,
well,
right? Until they walk
forget a
in there.
record store. In the last 2, going on 3 generations, if you ask a person under 20 at least to define retail, my guess is they would define it as a place that has electric doors. You push a cart through those doors, you go up and down aisles, you choose the item you want, and you take it to a clerk up front
Right.
who rings it up.
Or you scan it yourself.
Or you scan it yourself.
Right. Who needs a clerk?
That is retail. Now, to give you a very simple example of what retail has been in the 40 years that I've been doing, 45 years that I've been doing retail, it would not have been uncommon at all 30 years ago, much less common now, but 30 years ago, 35 years ago, for us to get a phone call. on the first day that colleges were letting out, from a college student's parents saying, John was just getting home today, and I know he's going to be at your store before he comes home, so tell him to pick up milk. That is what, I used to say to people when they would tell me that they had been shopping at Target or Corvettes or someplace like that, I would say, if you were buying a copy of the Shakespeare plays, would you buy it at Jewel? I mean, to me, that seemed inconceivable. And they would just look at me in the last few years and go, well, if they were on sale.
Yeah, if they're there, because Jewel wants just more people to buy things there.
That concept that you went, if you wanted books, if it meant something to you, you didn't buy it in a grocery store.
Right.
You went to the bookstore because where you bought it mattered.
Why is that? Could you expand on that?
Well, because there was a time prior to the gigantic big box stores when where you got your meat, where you bought your books, where you bought the gifts that you bought for people, those were personal relationships that you had with that merchant. The merchant was a member of your community, and you shared that, and therefore there was no such thing. I mean, you didn't buy your kids' clothes in a Walmart. You didn't buy, everything, and most younger people have no experience with the independent merchant. Oak Park is more of an exception, but most of the smaller independent stores are not general merchandise stores. They are stores that make personalized items, or perhaps a gift store with a theme. There's an Irish shop. There's a Pamela Penny's textile, where she teaches, she makes textiles, she makes sweaters,
you mentioned the end table, or the one who was in here before, right?
Right. Book table. That's a bookstore.
Oh, that's a bookstore.
Now that is an identical situation to mine. We are, and they face exactly the same issues that we would face. How to market in this world, and the way they have done it, far more so than the way we've done it, is to expand their entire inventory. They have a point of purchase cash register and a point of purchase inventory system, so that you can search their stock online, and you can order it or buy it online from the book table.
Okay.
They don't just put a few things on like we do. We have maybe
They've got a different relationship with online than you do.
Right. They have an online presence, and they have to with books even more than I do. But they don't sell as much in used.
Yeah.
See, so they do sell used, and they sell, but they sell a lot more of new, of small press, that kind of stuff than.
Is any of this new? Are the CDs new, or is this all?
No, we are
used?
both.
Oh, you are both. Okay.
We are new vinyl, used vinyl,
so they still make
new CDs, used CDs. Well, they are making more new vinyl now than they have made. That jumped. The sales for new vinyl, and probably the main reason that I'm still here 40 years later, the sales for new vinyl went from approximately 500,000 pieces in 2008.
Total, right?
Total sales in the U.S.
Wow.
in new vinyl to probably in the vicinity of 10 to 12 million.
Wow.
In 2012.
What drove that, do you think?
Well, there is an explosion in the purchase of vinyl. And it is driven primarily by young music buyers starting in their mid-teens, 14, 15 years old, on up, who have discovered that the experience of listening to vinyl and of delving into albums as opposed to downloading individual songs,
one song at a time, right.
is a completely different collectible and a different hobby experience. It's a completely different experience. The experience of downloading is identical to what was happening in the music business in 1954, when I was 15 years old, where you bought 45s. You bought one song, you put a stack of them on a spindle, and they fell down and played one song at a time, just like an iPod. No connection from one song to the next. When albums came into being, starting about 62, when serious albums came, now this always happened in jazz, happened in easy listening, happened in classical, but in pop music, when those albums started to come out, when albums like Rubber Soul and Revolver and Sgt. Pepper came out and Pet Sounds came out, those albums were experienced as an entity, as a work of art.
Right. You don't jump from one track to the other.
No.
I mean,
you got together with your friends, if your friends were your age, not my age, but your age, and on a Friday night, and one guy had enough money to buy an album, and you all got together in the basement, and you listened to the record, and you argued with the record. You argued with the artist on the record, because they should have put that song on side 2. It would have sounded better on side 2. And what did the album mean? And what was that drummer, what time did the drummer go to the bathroom? And what, who were these people? And what were they trying to tell us when they made The Wall? When they made Dark Side of the Moon? When they made Genesis albums? When they made this was a piece of art.
Right.
From beginning, it had a beginning and a middle and an end.
Like standing in an art gallery and looking at a painting.
Exactly.
A lot of it is there for you, but a lot of it is for you to interpret.
Right.
And to understand based on what you know about the artist.
Right. And that is not true if you're going to download a bunch of individual songs. That doesn't mean that there isn't a place for pop singles. Pop singles were a huge part of this industry and of the world. It's what drove us to go find an album, was if there was a single on it. When Stairway to Heaven came out by Led Zeppelin, the deep-seated Led Zeppelin fans were crushed because they didn't want their band to have a hit single. But the rest of the world said, who the hell is this band?
That's right, but the diehards didn't want to share.
Oh, no, they didn't want to lose them. So, but what happened is that CDs, even though they were albums, never created that kind of devotion.
There's not even an A-side or a B-side anymore.
Well, there isn't.
There's an order.
Right.
That you can.
And you don't have to turn it over. And you can put it on shuffle.
Right.
And it is not of a piece. And so that explosion in vinyl has changed everything. And to go back to pricing, it has also taken away there is no real, everybody sells the new LPs basically at list price. There's no reason to discount them. That may come back, but it did happen in CDs.
Right.
Where the list price was $15.99 and Best Buy was selling it for $10.99, and you had to compete with that, and you had people arguing about, I could have bought it. Now that same album, that same recording, now you can buy it on CD for $6.99, but the LP is $30 and nobody questions it.
The LP is $30, so you can get the
get
CD
the
for
same-
$6.99. I think you said. The LP
Maybe
for
even $4 if you pick it up used.
And
the new LP will be $29.99 or $34.99.
And why is that okay?
Because it's about supply and demand.
There just aren't as many LPs there.
It isn't even because there aren't. It isn't because they're missing that you can't, that they're rare. They're not rare. They're made brand new. You order them from the factory and they come brand new. But they are coveted.
Okay, that's the demand side then.
It is the
People want them.
demand side. It is not the availability side. It is the demand side. But even used ones that 30 years ago we would not have been able, and we couldn't, when CDs started to come out and there was a jump that said, we only want our music digital, we only want it on CD because it's going to sound better on CD. At that point, we could not sell those very same albums. We could not sell those Pink Floyd albums at $5 for $1 on vinyl. Now, the Pink Floyd albums are $35. The CD is, and I think those are still 11 or 12, something like that. And we can't get enough of them. We could sell them at $40, at $50.
Yeah.
Never questioned.
But you don't. So that
We
kind of gets
don't.
back to the pricing. You have a decision to make.
We have a
as
decision to
retailer.
make. There are a lot of things that come into that decision. Some of it is demand. When we're talking about used, where we set the price.
Right.
When we're talking about new, we just go with list.
Okay.
Whatever the manufacturer's list price is, we go with it. When it comes to used, we will make a decision based on a lot of things. We'll make a decision based on the demand, the rarity, the if how long something sits on a shelf. We're not going to charge the same amount for a Led Zeppelin album that we're going to charge for a Moody Blues album, because the Moody Blues albums sit 4 months on end, and the Led Zeppelin album will be gone in 20 minutes.
Do you track how long your inventory's been sitting?
No. I mean, we do in a sense.
I mean,
we have
you can
a
eyeball
month.
it and say, is this thing still here?
Right. We do it all the time. I mean, we have a month on our price sticker.
Oh, I
so we don't know exactly which year that month belongs to, but we know it's April. But it doesn't matter. I mean, now, in a box store, that would be calculated on a computer.
Right.
This isn't a box store.
Right.
So, and what am I going to do with used albums? It might govern how much I pay for it.
Okay, like you know that you're going to have trouble moving this.
I know
versus,
that I'm doing that person a favor. They just brought 50 albums in, and we agreed that we would take all 50, but 40 of them, either I already have copies, or I know from the last 47 times that somebody brought in Percy Faith records that 15 years from now, those will still be in the bin.
Right. But it's the other 10 that
I
you
might,
know you'll be
the
able to
other
move.
10 I know are going to go, and sometimes I know they're going to go before I get them out of the box and get them into the bins, because they're in that much demand and they're that rare. So this is a complete transformation in stocking a store, in its pricing, and in the marketing of that. Now, who do we market that to? In our case, a wide range, from 14-year-olds who are looking for classic rock to 80-year-olds who are looking for a complete Wagner ring that they used to have, and they've decided they want their LPs back, to someone who's traveling and wants to bring some Chicago blues to Europe.
Are most of your customers local, though, geographically? They live?
We have customers, probably the best example, speaking of marketing. If you look back there, you'll see a painting of the old store on South Boulevard that I had commissioned about 30 years ago. And I decided that I would have a postcard made of that painting. And I did, and as of our last printing, this has become by far the largest marketing tool that we have ever had. We're at 60,000 on those postcards.
You printed 60,000 of them, sent them out.
We're at about 57,000 of our postcards on every country on this planet. They're in Iceland, they're in Greenland, they're in Africa and Asia, they're in Europe, they're in Central and South America.
How does the postcard travel? Is it something that you send out or people pick them up at the cash register?
All of the above.
Okay.
It is Oak Park.
Yeah.
Now, that's called marketing. Oak Park is a higher to high income demographic inner city suburb. Okay? Bedroom community of multi generations of large families. Big homes. Home of Frank Lloyd Wright. Home of Hemingway. Home of Edgar Rice Burroughs. Home of a bunch of people who were either born here or grew up here. It is a tourist attraction from all over the world. This past week was the Wright Plus Walk. There were 3,000 people who went on this annual walk of the Frank Lloyd Wright homes. That postcard has gone out in the mail. It's been picked up here by family members who have gone elsewhere. It's been picked up all over other parts of the world in order to find out where we are here. We've been written about in every, in other countries. We've been, and that's been part of the draw, is that this community, so knowing the community you're in determines, would a postcard like that work on the northwest side of Chicago at Belmont and Central? Not at all. Simply wouldn't work. Who goes there?
It's the relationship this store has with the community around it.
Right. And it's where it's located. It's where it's located. If you're located in Portage Park in Chicago, that has had one pretty stable middle American to blue-collar population for the last 100 years, even though that population changes, that's not exactly a tourist attraction. Anybody know any reason anybody would go to Portage Park? No, they're going to go live there, but that's not, Oak Park is a tourist destination from every single corner of this world.
So we've been talking about people come from all over the world to your store because they come to Oak Park.
Right.
Of your resources, how much would you say are dedicated to bringing in new customers versus bringing in return customers?
Well, I mean, we depend on our return customers and our regulars because you can't depend on world travelers.
Right.
I have had people come and tell me that because we took the time to suggest, because I ask everyone, where are they going, where did they come from, where are they going after tonight's, where are they going to have dinner, what do they want to go see when they go into the city? Directing the right person to the right location. I mean, if you send a kid who's interested in goth to the area around the Symphony Center, the chances are they're not going to think you know very much. And they're not. Now, if you're going to send them to Wicker Park, where they're likely to run into like-minded people, who are maybe interested in the same things, or if you send them to a particular concert somewhere or a particular place to eat, you know, and you can't do any of those things unless you find out, unless you ask questions. So all of that is part of marketing technique. I want you to remember that you are coming to Oak Park for the first time, that you have walked into my store. You did not walk into a Best Buy like the one you have in your town.
Right.
You walked into some place that there is not another one anywhere.
What does music have to do with that?
Well, music is the language that we use. The chances are very good that if you walked into my store, it's because you've already stepped across that threshold into the world of music. Otherwise, you'd be down at bead in hand. If you're a beader and you're interested in little colored beads, you wouldn't be in my store. We don't share a lot of customers. Edit out that strong. So the chances are, and again, it matters, however, what category. If you are an opera fan from Salzburg and you walk into most used record stores in America, most, they ain't gonna talk your language.
Right.
I can talk your language. I sang oratorio for 15 years.
Really?
We can talk about opera and oratorio. We can talk about hip hop if we want to talk about Chicago House, and we want to talk about, you know, Marshall Jefferson and the founders of Chicago house music and hip hop music. If we want to talk about the difference between reggae and ska and if we want in you know, British reggae versus Jamaican reggae. But that's all part and parcel of the package of marketing. Right. Now, does that mean we're always perfect and know absolutely everything about everything? I guarantee you we're not. Any 10-year-old who has fallen in love with Kiss is going to be able to tell me more about Paul Stanley than I will ever be able to tell him.
But that's their burden.
But that's okay, because I can learn something from that. And I'm open to listening to their stories. But that's part of it. That's never going to happen in a Blockbuster store. And no matter how hard they try and fake it, they can't achieve it. So their techniques for marketing to a new person that moves into Oak Park will differ from mine.
Right.
Mine will be all about a personal relationship that Shane or I can establish with that person who just moved in. Where are they from? What are they? I'm the one with all those questions. He doesn't ask those questions. But if there's a musical division, or if I can open the door to one and then turn it over to him, you know, if there's if the discussion is going to be on shoegaze bands, which I can barely tolerate, it's going to Shane because he knows them inside out.
He's got
and
his
backwards.
specializations.
So I can open the door.
Yeah.
And then I can guide him there. If it's going to be about, you know, Gilbert and Sullivan, it's going to be about both of us.
Yeah.
It's going to be about folk and the Chicago folk scene. And my background is going to be part of the marketing technique.
Right.
So the more I know about music in general, the more I know about, the more history I have in it, all of that is marketing. Talking about the Beatles. I started at Capitol Records in 1962 with the Beatles and the Beach Boys.
What timing.
So there are
Perfect.
stories to tell. Stories open the door, and stories are a form of marketing.
A very important form.
They are a form of
People
marketing.
want the
Some
story
people
that you're
do it
selling.
by virtue of telling a good story through advertising.
Yeah.
Some people tell a good story through product placement.
Mm-hmm.
I tell the stories by never shutting up. I tell the stories by telling the stories.
That makes sense.
People want to know about why we burned 70,000 Beetle Butcher covers. People want to know about the first time I told my bosses that that kids that were listening to those Beach Boys records really liked them. And my bosses just laughed at me and said, we can't sell Beach Boys records in Chicago.
Really?
Oh, no. That's only for surfing music. Wow. They'll never sell, Val. They'll never make it on the radio, Val.
How did you get them to buy what you were selling back then? How'd you get them to listen to you?
I didn't.
Oh, you didn't?
They just laughed at me.
Yeah.
But it's a great story that I can tell now. And besides, the Beach Boys proved it themselves.
Right.
You know, they got them on the radio, and they had 10 double-sided hits in a row for the first 10 years, you know.
So what's your favorite kind of music?
Oh, there's no such thing.
Okay.
There are a couple of categories of music that I would prefer never to be subjected to again.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the new age, backy, groundy, instrumentally.
Like the elevator music kind of.
Dentist office, whatever the hell that stuff is. Meditational, quiet, chakra, meditate.
That's not for you.
No, not for me. As a matter of fact, I will tell a story.
Okay.
I don't know how I can fit marketing into it, but when I was having 19 teeth pulled, my dentist said to me, I was doing it with Novocaine, and he said to me, you know, Val, you could bring your Walkman. We've got some really nice cassettes we can put in that help you relax, you know, so that you can get this done. And I said, really? What kind of music do you have there? And he said, oh, I've got really nice, relaxing music, you know, like meditational, like slow down and all that kind of stuff. I said, Cliff, if you put that crap in my ears while you're pulling 19 teeth, you will create a serial killer. So I brought, the first Georgia Satellites LP, which is straight out, knock your brain out, rock and roll, turned it up as loud as it would go, and I was happy from that on.
That's what works.
That's what works.
You mentioned the Beatles a few times. Are you a Beatles fan?
Well, they're my band. I was at Capitol. I was there when they were born. Okay. So it's beyond fanhood. Yeah. I mean, there is a symbiosis, a relationship with the Beatles, because I was there when we put the needle down the very first time on I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Part of your own growing up.
It is my own. Well, I was already grown, and that is one of the things that differs. I'm by the time they came, by the time I started at Capitol, I was already 22. So I was not subjected to the same experience that a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old, a 14-year-old, the first time they heard the Beatles. I could make my decisions much less emotionally, and it was more about their music and what they were doing harmonically, and what impact they were having. I was part of the phenomenon. It was a completely different, and it's a perfect example of why in this industry, so much of it is about marketing. Yeah. The Beatles had put out 245s on VJ and on Tolly before they were signed by Capitol Records. Nobody bought them. Right. Now, one of them was She Loves You.
Really?
Nobody bought them. Nobody played it on the radio.
It wasn't marketed, right?
Nobody. It was VJ. It was a tiny little company. They didn't have any money. Yeah. So it was Brian Epstein who made the deal with Capitol Records. Now, we, on the other hand, before the release of Meet the Beatles and before the release of I Want to Hold Your Hand, I gave away probably I don't know, 15,000 little stickers that said the Beatles are coming. That was Capitol's doing.
Yeah.
We put out, and those stickers we gave to kids to plaster on trees and lockers and sidewalks.
Right.
We had help Band-Aids. When the Help album came out, we gave away Band-Aids that said help on them.
It's good old-fashioned guerrilla marketing. Right?
It's
Before it
guerrilla
became cool.
marketing before it was ever invented. When Ode to Billy Joe, the song came out by Bobby Gentry, we had one of our sales reps at Capitol Records owned a boat. There was an event that happened every summer in Chicago for a million years called Venetian Night. And boats went up and down the lakeshore on Lake Michigan. And one of our sales reps had a boat. So we put a Bobby Gentry look-alike on the stern, on the prow of the boat with a guitar that looked like Bobby Gentry, and we blasted Ode to Billy Joe. That's called marketing.
That's marketing.
You know, that's called marketing. That's what you do. And if that needs money, it needs creativity.
Yeah.
It needs ideas that make links. You know, Ode to Billy Joe is about somebody throwing something in a river. Well, this is a lake that's close enough. We're on the water, you know.
Same effect once you get wet.
Help. Well, that's the name of the album. So what do we do that makes people think about help? A Band-Aid. Yeah. So we had a parade. We had cars with help Band-Aids across, big gigantic 6-foot help Band-Aids across the side of the car.
Right.
In parades, we had, you know. So that's all marketing, and a company in that case that could make those connections. Then, when you add to that radio play and window displays, that's marketing. You know, local artist does painting of Frank Zappa. It's good for us. It's good for the local artist. Posters of who's playing at Fitzgerald's. We had a Beethoven lecture the other night. We got a new screen, our new HD screen. We had a talk about Beethoven through the eyes of Frank Lloyd Wright and John Cage.
Very cool.
So, of course, we have Beethoven.
So we're talking about some of the in-store events that you have going on.
Well, we have one big advantage to this location versus the old location. The old location was based on a narrow passageway between two buildings. That was the original store. We had a more square store to the side of it, but in any case, we had no place for live music except when we had outside events outside the store. Unless a band wanted to play single file, they couldn't play in the store. But here we have an honest-to-God stage, which is part of the front of the building. So I'm proud of the front of the store, and it was here because it was a woodworker who was there, and he used it to display large wood carvings that he did. So when we moved here, they asked me if I wanted more selling space, if I wanted to take out the stage, and I said, not a handmade wooden beautiful stage. So we kept it, and we have live music pretty often. We've had CD release parties. We've had music from different parts of the world. We've had opera. We've had an Afghani rubat player. We've had country. We've had rock and roll. We've had power pop. We've had, you name it.
Yeah. And you said you had Frank Lloyd Wright talking about Beethoven.
We had a talk by a musicologist, which was an example of the feelings for Beethoven through the eyes of Frank Lloyd Wright and through the eyes of John Cage. And the nice little marketing quote that we used was Frank Lloyd Wright believed that Beethoven was one of the greatest architects of all time, that music was like architecture, that they were almost one and the same,
really?
And that he was an architect of music. And John Cage thought he was a roll of toilet paper. So here were these two 20th century giants with these he just, Cage, initially, when he was younger, believed that Beethoven was just past his prime, that he was ordinary, that he just did, that there wasn't the innovation and the new, different. In truth, they were much, much closer than either of them ever admitted, because they both,
Right.
and there again, what David Patterson, who did the talk, what he did was show how, as far apart as they were musically, how organically and within their own framework they were closer than they were apart.
Really?
But it was, you would never
Otherwise,
see it.
right.
And if you listen to the music, you'd never believe it.
Yeah.
But, those are the connections. Those are the connections. So that talk was something we're going to do even more of that. We're going to have movie music nights and who knows what else. Sort of trying to bring back the idea that has been lost for these last 20 years or so, that it's fun to hang out in a record store,
Yeah.
that it's fun to talk about music, and that's what separates it from sitting with your headphones on when all you're doing is kind of downloading the stuff,
Yeah.
and not, or it's music. I think the big difference is that we work hard at promoting the idea that it is valuable to listen to music, and that's different than we're going out and doing something and there happens to be music playing. Those are two completely different activities.
Music is central.
It's what are
you're
we
trying to
doing
create.
Friday night? We're going to listen to the new Daft Punk album. That's listening to music.
Music as a destination.
What are we doing Friday night? Oh, we're going to play video games. We're going to go online. We're going to talk on the cell phone. We're going to text. We're going to do all these things, and there's going to be music. The Daft Punk album is going to play in the
But
background.
that's not what you're looking for.
That's a different, those are two, they're both activities. We're going to watch the new Lord of the Rings movie. We're going to, but music is a part of all those things, but those things didn't exist when music did. And there is value in exploring the art of music, whether it's classical, whether it's rock, whether it's country, whether it's folk. It doesn't matter what kind of music.
Right. You want to encourage that kind of exploration.
It's a great hobby. It's a great thing to do, to listen to music. And it's not the same as doing all these other things and having music playing. Those are two, cleaning the floors, vacuuming, and putting music in the background is fun. Dancing is fun. But those are different than I am now going to sit down and listen to the new Dylan album.
How do then, like streaming music, like Pandora, what do you think about that? How does that affect your business?
Well, it affects our business in two ways. On a negative side, it affects our business because some people do streaming, listen to it, and treat it as a radio station and never buy music at all, or they finally download a copy of something. So it doesn't, they don't even talk to us. On the positive end, what it does is allow people to hear snippets of a lot of different stuff, which can then introduce them to a new artist and the exploration of an album or even a CD. So it can work in both ways. By and large, in the CD world, it works more often than not on the negative end. Because it's like they're listening to the radio, whether it's Sirius or whether it's Spotify or whether it's Pandora or whether it's any of those things. It's basically listening to the radio. Somebody else is programming what you're playing.
Okay, right. And you're not experiencing it. You're just listening to it.
Well, and you can experience it, but you're experiencing it on a song-by-song level. That's not the same thing. It can be just as enjoyable,
Yeah.
but it's a different experience.
Okay. What other challenges are on your mind now? Marketing challenges that your store is up against?
Well, getting more and more people to attend the things, having people take the time to explore music. I mean, we can have like a giant day, like record store day, just this massive input of people, and then not see some of those people for months on end.
Maybe till the next record store day.
Right. We do have a very active mailing list. We also are constantly on social media. It is the primary marketing tool of the moment.
Which social media do you use?
We use Facebook every day. We use Twitter every day. We have a store Facebook page, Shane's Facebook page, my Facebook page. We rotate the stuff. We post every day. He posts all kinds of little odds and ends. He'll take a box of records. We'll post what's in the box. We
Do you have contests like that, or is that just?
yeah, well, they're just kind of people respond.
Okay.
It's just to maintain this communication.
Do you use Pinterest or Tumblr or any of the other?
We use Pinterest. He
Twitter?
does that. Yes, we use Twitter. We do any and all. I don't think he's doing Pinterest. He might be doing Instagram. Maybe he's doing Pinterest, but not Instagram. One or the others. He's doing that. I'm on Facebook all the time, all day long. Hi there.
Hi there, Val. We're bringing you some records.
Gee, thanks.
Yeah, you may not say thanks.
Just go ahead and bring them in. You gonna leave them for us?
Yeah, we are.
Good. Okay.
That's a good intro or outro right there. Business goes on.
It goes on every day.
Yeah.
We buy as many as a couple hundred a day.
A couple hundred a day.
Yes. So that's one of the, and that's very important because the used record market is, because the purchase of used records has blown up so much, it means that it's harder and harder to get quality used stuff because more and more people are
They're grabbing and keeping it, right?
keeping it, or they're passing it along to their own family members, their own kids, or whatever. So
Do you see that growth continuing?
I can only hope.
Yeah.
I have no predictions. I mean, we still have a long way to go for it to be saturated because every single day and every single week, people are buying turntables.
Yeah.
So that has, blown up. I don't think it's, by any means crested yet.
Good.
But how long that's going to last and how long they're going to keep that passion for it, we have no way of knowing. I mean, there's no question that I don't think there's going to be anything totally innovative like downloading that's coming up in the near future. So the question is simply whether this is a short-term hobby that wears out and people just go to downloading completely and just ignore any hard copy of music
Right.
or books or anything else. It's hard to believe that there wouldn't still be a market.
Yeah.
Because even when LPs were at their worst, we still had LPs.
Yeah.
And we
The niche
sold
was still
LPs.
there.
It was still there. It was just much smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other challenges that you think about or that you can sort of see off in the future?
My age, it's it creeps and jumps and goes very, very fast.
I hate that about age.
And that is something that, fortunately, I've been healthy and I've been able to be here. Shane's been a stalwart, but We don't know. But that's not something I think about too much.
Yeah.
I'm much more on a day-to-day, how can we increase the engageability of the store? How can we keep tabs on the new product that we get and carry more and more new product that will be interest to our customers? And how can we get them in and get them involved in what we have and what we offer?
Yeah. So could you encapsulate, what does Valhalla offer? What's your offering?
Well, I think what we offer more than anything else is the greatest percentage, in my mind, the greatest percentage of satisfactory answers to questions. I would like to match that up, if I could, against any store, not just independent store, any retail store in America or anywhere else in the world. The idea that more people will, for each 50 people or 100 people or 10 people, I would hope to have a greater percentage with an answer, not with a sale, because that isn't going to happen, but with an answer for what question a customer might have to ask that may or may not have anything to do with music. And I think that's something we offer that's far removed from anybody else.
Yeah.
There are not a lot of advantages to being old, but the one advantage that does exist is a massive amount of trivia that has managed to worm its way
It sticks,
in
right?
the pre-Alzheimer's condition that manages to pop out, and again, it comes in the form of stories, comes in the form of facts, comes in the form of research, finding it, answering it, and if possible, selling it if it has something to do with music. But I don't sell Italian beef sandwiches, but I can guarantee you that if you go to Johnny's on North Avenue, you're going to get the best beef you can get.
But is there anything that you'd like to sell more of here? Not just like in general, yes, it'd be great if sales were higher, but
No,
is there
not
anything you
in
think missing
terms
from
of-
your inventory?
No, there's not in terms of we're selling a record player. We don't need more than one. We do it as, and again, it's an accommodation, a turntable.
Oh, someone could come in here and buy a turntable.
Yes,
if they want.
we have one turntable. It's a basic one. I mean, I would want more of what we have, a better selection even of used product. Of that, the weirder, the better.
Yeah.
The more outside the box, the better, because this is a market, and this is all about marketing. This is a neighborhood and a market that is eclectic.
Right.
And it is the basis on which my store is built. It's based on a cross-section of musical interest that spans virtually every single genre. And so I would like to have even more of the harder to find, more eclectic, more out there. But we are limited in space.
Right.
We're also limited in what is offered. And we also are limited to some extent because we are so unlimited. There is not another store of this size for sure, and maybe not even another store of any size that has the selection of classical vinyl that I have.
Do you have local competitors, or anyone you consider to be a local competitor?
In classical vinyl?
Or in anything?
Not in the world.
Yeah.
In other categories? Oh, absolutely. Because other stores do some things better. If someone is serious about jazz, there isn't a store to compete with Jazz Record Mart in Chicago. I wouldn't even begin to think
Yeah.
You know, but Jazz Record Mart wouldn't know a classical record from a Potato Head. Jazz Record Mart wouldn't know a pop record from a Potato Head.
They're just jazz.
So they do jazz way better than I do jazz.
Yeah.
But part of our limitation is that we are, you know, nobody's going to walk into Jazz Record Mart and ask for Franklin McCormick from 1940 Chicago radio.
Okay.
I have
That
Franklin
you've
McCormick
got that.
in stock.
And it's that eclectic nature that sets you apart. Is that correct? Or am I
Oh, it
putting
is
words in-
absolutely at our eclectic nature that sets us apart. There isn't another. I mean, there are 4 stores within a mile of here that sell used vinyl. But, you know, and because they are more limited across the board, they will be stronger in that one area of classic rock or pop rock or whatever they carry. But they aren't going to have anywhere near the spread that we have.
Thank you for your time.
You are very welcome. It's been wonderful.